دبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على ايدك بتحل. دبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على ايدك بتحل. يا حضرة القائد دل، لا تظن انه الأمة بتمل، لكن انت سايرها يمكن على ايدك بتحل. ما دمت رجلا خبير وقائد عسكري خطير، وقضيتنا كلها فهمتها، ما بيلزم إلك تفسير. فهم لندن باللي صار واللي بعده راح يصير. العرب أمة أحرار، صداقتها لازمتكو كتير. فدبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على إيدك بتحل. دبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على إيدك بتحل. انت كنت عاوز يا جنرال بالقوة تغير هالحال. انت كنت عاوز يا جنرال بالقوة تغير الحال. لازم تعتقد أكيد طلبك صعب من المحال، لكن خدها بالحكمة واعطينا الثمن يا خال. ونفذ شروط الأمة من حرية واستقلال. ودبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على إيدك بتحل. دبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على إيدك بتحل. جيت فلسطين الحرة حتى تقمع الثورة، ولما درست الحالة لقيت المسألة خطرة. بدنا تفهم بريطانيا حتى تكفينا شرها، وتصافي الأمة العربية بمنع البيع والهجرة. ما دمت صاحب السلطة حل هالمشكل وهالورطة. ومد يدك وصافحنا وما تخلي ولا ورطة. نفذ وعود الشرف حتى نمحي هالغلطة. للدولة هذا أشراف وأحسن مشروع وخطة. فدبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على إيدك بتحل. دبرها يا مستر دل، بركن على إيدك بتحل. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be solved by your will. Oh, esteemed General Dill, don't think that Ummel stay still, but since it's you moving things along, maybe it's you who'll right these wrongs. You are a man of such insight, a commander always up for a fight. You know our stories in and outs, so we don't need to clear up doubts. Tell London what's come to pass and all else that we will fulfill. The Arabs are a free ummah and this friendship is wanting still. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. Oh, General, if it was your desire to use force to end this quagmire, you must keep in mind for sure that such an order won't endure. Accept from us this bit of truth and give to us what we are due. Come good on the Ummah's demands of liberty within our lands. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. This is free Palestine where you've arrived to try and douse our revolution's fire. When you studied our reality, you found your goal far too risky. Tell Britain to end its villainy and withdraw its evil hand, afford our ummah honesty, and stop the selling and settling of our land. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. You remain the man with authority, so lead us out of this quandary. Offer us your hand in kind, and don't leave any knots behind. Keep your promises, restore the faith, so that we may erase this mistake. It would be most noble for the state and the best endeavor and task. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. Figure it out, Mr. Dill. Perhaps it'll be sorted by your will. This poem, of course, was Figure It Out, Mr. Dill by the Palestinian poet Nuh Ibrahim. Nuh Ibrahim was a poet from Haifa who was born in the neighborhood of Wadi Nisnas in 1913. His father was killed when he was very young, and he grew up in extreme poverty. For a certain amount of time, he lived inside the Christian monastery under the care of nuns, and he studied in an Islamic school until the fifth grade, when he was forced to leave and find work. We previously encountered this style of poetry. So Nuh Ibrahim, after he left school, worked at a printing press where he fell in love with words, and he became a Zajjal. Which is a poet in the style of Zajjal. So we encountered Zajjal on Wednesday morning when I introduced Nazik al-Malaika, the author of the poem Cholera, whose father was a Zajjal as well. Zajal, of course, is this traditional style of Arabic poetry that's usually orally transmitted and composed in a vernacular dialect, so not really in classical Arabic or modern standard, in the dialect of specific towns or villages, which is kind of not very typical because most Arabic poetry is done in classical Arabic or modern standard. Nuh Ibrahim, of course, is not so famous these days, but a lot of his poems are iconic Palestinian resistance songs, like From Akka's Prison, and of course, Figure It Out, Mr. Dill. He remains very famous today for writing in this really simple language that's really easy to understand and really easy to remember. During his later years, Nuh was known as Tilmiz al-Qassam, the student of al-Qassam, because he was a student, very obviously, of the very famous Syrian revolutionary Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam, who arrived in Palestine as a teacher and planted some of the seeds that eventually sparked the 1936 popular revolt in Palestine. Upon al-Qassam's martyrdom in a cave near the village of Ya'bad in November 1935, when he was killed by British soldiers, Nuh Ibrahim composed this famous elegy, What a Loss, Ya Izz-ad-Din. Shortly after al-Qassam's death, of course, in 1935, so the following year in 1936, Palestine erupts into a series of strikes against the British Mandate government. In fact, the strike that lasted from about the middle of the year until the end of it was actually one of the longest strikes in history. For a while, was actually the longest strike in history. And this popular revolt went on for about 3 years. Upon al-Qassam, shortly after Qassam died, this armed insurrection as well that emerged from the strikes was one that Nuh Ibrahim joined as a revolutionary. The British, of course, had occupied Palestine in 1917 and gained the right to, from the League of Nations, to a mandate over Palestine in the early 1920s after World War I. And so during this process of mandatory rule, the British were involved in sort of taking the land of Palestine through all these different legislations that they enacted, and of course working with these absentee landlords and people who were not resident in Palestine but had control over certain lands due to like their relationships with the Ottomans and other reasons. And of course they were facilitating the Zionist settlement of Palestine. During the uprising, Nuh gained fame as a poet and as a skilled revolutionary fighter, having been personally taught to use a gun by Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam. And it was during this time that he composed most of his famous poems, including this one, Figure It Out, Mr. Dill. The Mr. Dill of this poem was the British General John Grier Dill, who served in Palestine as the general officer commanding during the 1936 uprising. According to the historian Ilan Pape, he was, quote him, the architect of the barbaric measures the British Army employed to suppress the revolt. House demolitions, sometimes with the people inside, walking people over minefields, closures, and curfews. Nuh comprised this poem after he was arrested by the British authorities and placed in the infamous Akka prison in 1937. He was known to be a charismatic and charming young man, so much so that General Dill was actually impressed by his poem and asked to meet him face to face, after which he released him from prison. After his release, Nuh continued to write poems and conduct operations against the British colonizers. On the first day of Ramadan in 1938, which corresponds to the 28th of October, as Nuh and 3 other revolutionary fighters, Muhammad Khadr Qiblawi, Izz-ad-Din al-Khalaili, and Abu Ra'ad, a Syrian volunteer in Palestine, were traveling to visit relatives in the village of Majd al-Krum in the Galilee, they were ambushed by British soldiers with air support from the Royal Air Force. Nuh and his companions were martyred in the operation. He was only 25 years old. The British soldiers dumped their bodies in a well where they were found by the residents of Tamra, a nearby village, who carried the dead fighters' bodies and buried them. Nuh Ibrahim today remains one of the most beloved, at least in terms of his poetry, Palestinian poets, whose songs now we almost accept as traditional folk songs. May Nuh Ibrahim, of course, rest in peace, Allah yarhamak, and may we always remember this spirit of resistance within poetry and song as well. We will be back after a short break.